Canada, hello United States of America. Greetings to everybody all over Panama and the planet. My name is Kevin J. Johnston. This is the Kevin J. Johnston Show that runs every Tuesday and Thursday at 9 p.m. Eastern Time right here on freedomreport.ca. We're going to be talking about gold, silver, the truth about gold and silver, and how you can protect your wealth, especially if you are a Canadian, because we know that the banks are closing down next year, which none of us are happy about, but it is what it is. And there's many, many, many opportunities to protect your wealth and, of course, make money in this crazy economy. And for those who are wondering, no, I do not live in Canada anymore. I was smart enough to escape back in November of last year. I currently live in Panama City, Panama. Yeah, the center of commerce in pretty much all of Latin America. The city is absolutely incredible. There's everything in the world to do, and it's really affordable. I had, ready for this, everyone? I had a pork chop, about a pound worth of meat with rice and potato, $2.95. That's right. I got change back on $3. It was absolutely unreal. I love it here. I'm not leaving anytime soon. But first, a word from our sponsor. Thank you, J.Guy, for the heart over there on TikTok. Greatly appreciate that. Digitout.ca. The Greater Toronto Area's best, number one, absolutely best company to contact if you're going to make modifications to your home in any way. Call Greg right now at 647-212-3786, 212-3786. Let him know that you saw him on the Kevin J. Johnston Show. Digitout.ca is where you're going to find all kinds of content for what he does. And look, hey, guys, check this out. This is a fence that's made of metal, and all these rocks, all these river rocks are put in there by hand. That is right. That's the kind of work this gentleman does. If you want to increase your property value anywhere in Southern Ontario, get a hold of Greg at digitout.ca, 647-212-3786. Well, I think you all heard, everyone, that Donald J. Trump was found guilty on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 10, 12, 18, 34 counts of BS, garbage, nonsense. And Donald J. Trump, of course, well, you all know, he is the former president of the United States and will be again this coming November, most likely. So the Democrat Party is doing everything they possibly can to make it so that he cannot run, but it will not work. We have Trump. Let's see what he has to say here. Let's put him up on the screen right now. I'm going to play the video, and here we are.
This was a disgrace. This was a rigged trial by a conflicted judge who was corrupt. It's a rigged trial, a disgrace. They wouldn't give us a venue change. We were at 5% or 6% in this district, in this area. This was a rigged, disgraceful trial. The real verdict is going to be November 5th by the people. And they know what happened here, and everybody knows what happened here. You have a Soros-backed DA and the whole thing. We didn't do a thing wrong. I'm a very innocent man, and it's okay. I'm fighting for our country. I'm fighting for our Constitution. Our whole country is being rigged right now. This was done by the Biden administration in order to wound or hurt an opponent, a political opponent. And I think it's just a disgrace. And we'll keep fighting. We'll fight till the end, and we'll win, because our country's gone to hell. We don't have the same country anymore. We have a divided mess. We're a nation in decline, serious decline. Millions and millions of people pouring into our country right now from prisons and from mental institutions, terrorists, and they're taking over our country. We have a country that's in big trouble. But this was a rigged decision right from day one, with a conflicted judge who should have never been allowed to try this case, never. And we will fight for our Constitution. This is long from over. Thank you very much.
Why should voters vote for convicted felons?
All right. So what was going on today when the verdict was being read out was maniacs, stupid lefties were going, yay! And then count 2 guilty. Yay! They got louder. Then count 3. Yay! They got loud, like seals. They seem to think that just because there were guilty verdicts that were brought forward on these ridiculous charges that began as misdemeanors, which in Canada we would call summary offenses, they eventually got changed to felonies. Each one would be 4 years in prison, but the odds of a judge being able to actually lock him up in prison for these things is just about zero. And the sentencing wouldn't even take place until July. But the retards there that were clapping and cheering for this whole thing honestly believed that Trump was going to be found guilty and then taken into custody and then put in jail for the rest of his life. That's what they thought. Well, let's disappoint them. Trump's got 30 days to appeal. And of course, he's going to appeal. So what'll happen here, his lawyers, they're obviously very smart, will appeal this case somewhere around the 25th day. Get the maximum. Oh, yes, Clemson, I can use the word retard, and I have, and I will continue to use the word retard. In fact, all the left-wingers that were clapping in New York today when that verdict was being read out are mentally retarded retards named Retardo. All right, there you go. Yeah, I can say it, and I will say it. Yeah, the R word. All right. I love the R word. So left-wing extremist retards thought that he was going to go to prison. Not going to happen. In order, here's how it works. I know this because the Canadian government put me in prison for being awesome and good looking and having a great podcast. The verdict comes in, you appeal it. You get 30 days to appeal. If they're smart, they put the appeal in on about the 25th to 28th day to buy themselves as much time as possible. And then when that appeal paperwork goes in American law, just like Canadian law, there will be a set period of time to perfect the appeal, which simply means they put forward all of their arguments on paper. But it also means that the sentencing in July gets pushed to a time when that appeal is denied, which they will try to do as quickly as they possibly can in New York. But New York's pretty busy these days. New York's kind of tied up with all the illegal aliens stabbing cops, which, I don't really have a problem with, I got to admit, because they brought it on themselves. And that New York courthouse probably wouldn't even hear the appeal until after the election date. So this whole thing has just given Donald Trump more press, more time in the spotlight. Joe Biden just recently in Idaho had a rally. 52 people showed up. Trump has a rally. 52,000 show up, and there's 52,000 more trying to buy tickets outside from scalpers. That's how it works. So we've got somebody who is they're terrified he's going to win. He probably will win this particular time around. And I think at this point, the American people are so fed up that there will be a revolution. Now, Trump said something interesting there. He had less than 6% of the vote in the region in New York in which he was being tried, which means that the whole thing was biased. The police were biased. The judge was biased. The idiots, the retards on the jury were all biased. They were all pro-Biden, pro-pedophilia, pro-loser, and of course, anti-Trump and anti-Christian, anti-America. And it's really pathetic that we have anti-America people running the courts or being on juries in courts against a former president. Yeah, you're right, Sonara. Trump's going to be fine. This is free advertising for him. Like they're playing right into his hands. So let's see what happens when the appeal goes forward. I'm really curious to see if they can get an appeal date to happen in New York prior to November. I don't think they can. I think that they've pretty much burned up everything they possibly can at this particular point. And what I'm hoping here, when Trump wins, I hope that he goes out of his way to arrest the judges and everybody on the jury and everybody who plotted against him, because they're all traitors. This is election interference at its worst, and it's high treason. When that's all said and done, I'm certainly hoping that Trump decides to annex Canada, or at least Alberta. Make a deal with Alberta, but annex the country, because we cannot have left-wingism exist anymore. We don't need this nonsense anymore. The left wing has already proven to all of us they cannot wait to destroy us in every way. And they have. Left-wing thinking doesn't create, it destroys. And the left-wingers in America have already shown how far they are willing to go to destroy. So let's just say a few things right now that will bother the left-wing people watching. Kyle Rittenhouse is a hero, and Donald Trump is the real president of the United States of America. Justin Trudeau is a pedophile. And albeit many of you out there think Pierre Poilievre is the solution in Canada to become prime minister, he's not a solution. Remember, Pierre Poilievre is the guy that wants digital IDs. So the best hope for North America, get Trump in, and in Trump's second year, have him invade Canada. Please, Donald J. Trump, please invade my former home, because the Canadian people desperately, they're not smart enough to realize it, but they desperately need you to do just that. And then kick everything out that was illegally brought into Canada and the United States. These creatures of the night that are running around raping and pillaging and destroying, killing. And I do want to say this, that to all police officers in Canada, I am mocking you because you brought this on yourselves. You should be out there arresting every single politician sitting in office right now, because they're the ones that are bringing all these violent, crazy psychopaths into Canada, and they're not afraid of you. These Africans, these Arabs, these Indians, and so on, they're not afraid of the police. You're afraid of them. So your cowardice is right now in your way, and your cowardice in that costume that you wear, something that the Canadian people no longer respect. So you're not respected nor liked anymore by the Canadian people. And these guys that you're trying to intimidate, they're not afraid of you. They're coming at you with everything they have. You got to remember what Africans love. Africans love machetes. They call it the cutlass. They love it. And they're coming at you with that. I'm not encouraging them to do so, by the way. I'm just warning you that they are. So you might want to do what the German police are doing now, and that's get chainmail around your neck. You want to wear chainmail on your arms because they're going to come at you. You got to block. Make sure you got chainmail on to protect you. And German cops are wearing chainmail around their faces and around the jugular veins. Get ready for it. And Arabs, they like knives. So you've got knives and you've got machetes, both of which can be hidden under most pieces of clothing that they're going to wear, and both of which are highly lethal weapons, even if you've got body armor on, because they're not going to hit you where the body armor is. Canadian police, you guys are in a lot of trouble, but I don't have any sympathy for you. I watched 40 Toronto police officers show up on a bus and beat the living crap out of a 5'4" woman, Kellyanne Wolf, just because she was fighting for people's rights. So if you losers are going to do that, you honestly deserve whatever's coming. I'm just warning you that it's coming. I'm in Panama. I'm not going to be near you guys. I won't even be there with a camera running and laughing at you. I'm going to be here where it's safe from the world that you are helping to create by not arresting Canadian politicians. And that's on you. And the lecture's over. I don't care anymore. We got to talk about gold and silver, everybody. We got to talk about taxes tonight. We got to talk about money. How do Canadians and Americans protect their money? Oh, yeah, we got to talk about that. By the way, also to everyone who's watching right now, if you want to be in my private seminar this coming Monday at 9 p.m. Eastern time, it's private. There's only 25 slots. That's all there's going to be. It's $25. All right, $25 will get you in there. Go to my website, Kevin J. Johnston, well, right here, .com. If you're up here on TikTok, it's kevinjjohnston.me. Just go to the donate section of the website that you'll find in the shop button. Donate $25. Make sure I've got your name, phone number, and email address. And you're going to get the link to come on in to watch the show. I'm going to tell you step-by-step instructions how to legally never pay tax in Canada again. This is totally worthwhile. Get on in there. And the reason that we're charging $25 is the CRA and the police, they're going to want to watch and see if I'm telling people to do something illegal. But you know what's funny is when the cops watch my stuff, when I charge for it, they don't show up. Isn't that weird? Like they're probably going to try to find some way to get me arrested or put a warrant out for me in Canada. And they're going to say like, Kevin's teaching people not to pay tax. But because I'm charging $25, the cops won't be there. Losers. Stupid. The way they do things is ridiculous. Absolutely. And I know this because whatever we had private chat rooms, the cops, the Peel Regional Police, I don't swear on my show ever, but fuck all of you. All right. You guys came into private chat rooms where we were talking about where I was going to hang signs up. And we would put a sign up on a bridge facing the highway. And you guys would show up because you're so cool. Like your investigative skills. You were in a private chat room and you'd show up. And now here's the way Peel Regional Police would do it. Right? Loser number one would show up with his body armor on, his costume and his gun and his pepper spray. And then he'd have 2 to 5 others, detectives with body armor on and a suit jacket and gun on the hip. And you guys, you put all that effort into doing what? Showing up with knives to cut my signs down and lecture me about why I shouldn't have a sign up. You're a bunch of losers. Peel Regional Police are the biggest bunch of losers on the planet. I have no respect for that police force whatsoever. There's 2 or 3 cool guys on that force that I've spoken to, but you're a bunch of losers. And guess what's happening with Brampton, Mississauga, and Western Toronto having 1 million more terrorists coming in? You guys are cooked. They are coming at you something fierce, but don't worry. I'm not coming back to Mississauga to watch the carnage, although it would be funny. You're on your own. You're on your own, man. So if Ed, just a second here, don't you say a word. Let me finish this thought. Citizen journalists, if you guys want to get great footage, and I'm telling you this right now, I will pay you for it. If you get footage of Peel Regional Police officers getting shot and stabbed and run over by these foreigners that they say that I'm not allowed to speak about, if you get that footage and the cop is rolling around crying, hey, I got stabbed, get that footage. I will pay you for it. All right. So go out there and film because it's coming. I'm not encouraging this. All right. I will never encourage anyone to stab a police officer or shoot a police officer or run a police officer over. And you know what, guys? I still encourage you to be polite when you're talking to the police because being rude doesn't help. I'm just saying that this loser police force that stalked my entire family for almost 4 years, they're about to meet their makers. And I'm saying that you guys get out there and film this stuff and get me the footage because I want everyone to see just how pathetic and cowardly they really are. They're not tough. When you wear body armor with a gun, you're not tough. And you're about to find out when people are not afraid of you, what happens. So get me that footage, man. Ed, what's up? You got something to say?
Left-wing thought, Kevin? Like, huh? How about left-wing brainwashing or something like that?
No,
left-wing thought. Come
I don't
on.
give a crap what it is, man. I'm just telling you that left-wing thought processes, behavior, ideology, ideologues, they have completely destroyed Canada. And the problem is all the police forces across Canada are more than 50% left-wing, libtard, retard, pro-pedophilia losers who wear skirts on the weekend.
Well,
There you go.
to be more accurate, shouldn't we be calling it left-wing non-thought or left-wing brainwashing thought or repetition of left-wing talking points? Because there's no thought involved, please.
No, and
It
left
can't
wing
be.
don't have talking points. They have crying. Hesha makes a good comment here, not trying to sound like Black Lives Matter or the left wing, but I think the police need to be defunded as all they're doing is harassing law-abiding citizens while the lawbreakers get away with everything. That's absolutely true. That's absolutely true. All right. The police in Canada, like they follow me everywhere. Ed, I can't believe they're not following you around everywhere. But when I read the disclosure package that the Edmonton police had on me, they always write it down saying, this guy, Kevin J. Johnston, is known to every police department in the country. Why? Because I got a podcast. Because I teach people what their rights are. That's it. That's all it takes to be on the shit list of every police department in Canada is smile, have a good podcast, be awesome looking like me, and tell the truth. They can't handle it.
You know what it could be, Kevin? They probably got on my record or something. They pull up my name and they say, oh, yeah, this is the guy that beat up 3 bouncers at Lulu's back in the 80s.
Yeah,
that actually happened.
Well, yeah.
But the bouncers were asking for it. They would not apologize. Then they thought they were going to rough me up and get away with it. Didn't happen.
All
that
right.
way.
So someone's asking me here in TikTok, Monday is a seminar. It's a private seminar, 25 spaces. That's all there are. It's $25 Canadian, not US, Canadian, on my website. That's about 19 US dollars. And I'm going to talk to Canadians about how they can legally never pay tax again, how to protect their assets legally. Creator's calling me a grifter. So you are out of here. Bye-bye. We do not allow that word here. All right. So I'm going to teach you all, and it's not free man on the land stuff, by the way. I hate those free man guys because they get people in trouble all the time. And it's not, what's that called? OPAC stuff. It's none of that. Period. There you go. So just go to my website, everyone. Down below, it's a $25 donation, and you're in. You will get the link sent to you on Monday afternoon. It's 9 p.m. Eastern time on Monday. So yeah, getting back to it now, let's talk about gold and silver. All right. Because that's what we do. A lot of people ask me, should I buy gold and silver? Of course you should. But why should you? All right. In Roman times, but we're going way back now, Roman times, silver was a metal that would buy you a day's worth of provisions. Bread, barley, wheat, sugar, salt, whatever they had, you could buy with silver. Gold would buy you a month's worth of provisions. Those two metals were the most common traded. The Romans were masters of bronze, but bronze was used for weapons. It didn't have a value beyond military usage, armor and shields and swords. And there's obviously other metals they were able to smelt at that particular time, but they didn't have mining technology like we have now. So there wouldn't have been a ton of metals they could have used. They chose silver and they chose gold as the currency metals, which means we've got over 5,000 years of historical tracking on precious metals like gold and silver. Well, everyone says, yeah, but platinum's worth more than gold. It's actually not. All right. Platinum, we've only got about 30 to 40 years worth of recording on platinum being used as a valuable metal, and palladium even less. I've got the charts, so we're going to talk about those things. Gold and silver are where it's at. Now, we're going to be talking about its value tonight because we've got Bryce Wade is going to be joining us very shortly. He's an expert on this. But silver and gold will be the two metals, the only two metals that I'll be investing in. I will not be touching platinum. I will not be touching palladium. And gems, I don't know. I don't think that in this modern economy that diamonds, sapphires, rubies, and so on are going to hold value because they're not something that could be used in anything of value, such as gold could be used as a superconductor. If you cool it down, it's a conductor. All right, you can use it. Silver can be used to make solar cells. These two things have a use, but everyone believes them to have value, so they will continue to have value. I don't think human beings anytime soon are ever going to stop believing that silver and gold have value. So should you invest in gold and silver? Absolutely, you should. You should have gold and silver in your portfolio. You want to make sure that you're maintaining your wealth. You need to have the following: property, house or land, gold, silver, Bitcoin, and cash. You got to have all of the above if you want to make sure that you're maintaining your value. In your household, if you're planning on keeping your household in Canada right now, you should also have antibiotics because they last a good 6 to 10 years shelf life. You want to make sure you have alcohol, not for drinking, but for trading. And you want to have cigarettes in freeze-dried packages because cigarettes are currency. Look at Ed. He smokes about 14 packs every show. If you ever came across Ed and he's got food and you had cigarettes, you could dangle them like a carrot in front of Ed and he'll give away his food for those cigarettes. But so will the average person is what I'm saying. Oh, yeah. Oh, no. No. Yes. No.
No.
Okay.
Because I got tons of food. I got tons of seeds. I know how to hunt. I know how to clean my whatever it is I shoot. I'll be just fine.
Yeah, Hesham seems to be on your side. I don't think Ed's going to trade cigarettes for anything, but the average person will. You'd be amazed at people who are addicted to nicotine, how quickly they'll part with food or toothpaste or soap for cigarettes. So why not have those as a currency ready to go? Go ahead.
So also we got to get into de-dollarization tonight, if we could.
Well, we're going to
touch
get
on
into
that.
all that. So without further ado, let's get Bryce Wade on the show right now. Bryce, thank you for being here. Really do appreciate everything that that you're going to tell us tonight. So let's start right off here. Gold, silver, or cash? What's better and why?
So short term and right now, you want to have some cash on hand for sure. But silver is about the most undervalued asset class on the market right now that you can invest in. There's an argument to be made for Bitcoin. I'm not going to make it. I don't really dabble in that anymore. Don't really agree with it for a variety of reasons. And gold would be a second. But definitely, I would say silver is the best value that you can get for your money right now. And if you're looking to protect your wealth and assets and cash from all of the insanity of the world, we love silver more than anything else at New World Precious Metals for sure.
All right. So with silver being about $44 Canadian per ounce right now, people should buy how many ounces you figure? Thousands, hundreds, dozens? What do you think?
Well, that's kind of that's part of the conversation. I'm investing the vast majority of my my capital into silver, so I think that would speak for itself. And a lot of the brokers at our company majority invested in silver because it's so undervalued. And I can actually show everybody what that actually looks like and
Sure.
how undervalued it is.
Sure thing.
So I have
Okay.
a
Well,
quote
first off,
here.
before we get into that there, Bryce, just your precious metals broker, and maybe explain to us what that means. Go ahead.
Sure. So the spot price of precious metals or any commodity, basically that's like the buy and the sell price more or less, right? But you as a retail investor or as somebody off the street, you're never going to get it for that price. That's basically reserved for institutions and large quantity purchases. So a broker can help you get larger quantities at a better price than you're able to get yourself. So if you walked into Vancouver Bullion Exchange, I'm from Vancouver here, so I'll just use that as a reference. So if you walked into Vancouver Bullion Exchange, they're going to charge you a premium above spot. Generally, that's about 10% roughly for gold and roughly about 15 to 20% for silver, depending on the day and what's happening. That went as high as 50% during COVID. Now it's down to about 15, 20%, something like that. And we can basically save people a little bit of those premiums through our wholesale program. And just if they want it in their hand, we can save them a little bit of money that way as well.
Wonderful. Okay, let's get back to silver now, because you kind of surprised me by saying that silver is your investment as opposed to gold. So go ahead, bring up your chart here, and let's get into it.
Sure. So what this basically shows you is all of the prices of these commodities historically from 1980 and from 2021. And so you can see in this chart that the only one that's less now than it is then is silver. Now, there's a variety of reasons for this. One of them being the suppression of precious metals. The paper market is very, manipulated, let's say. So is the gold market, which is why it's been so low for so long, even though the massive demand and the massive buying that's happening all across the world. And I looked at silver, and one of the things that you can look at is the ratio between gold and silver. Now, you mentioned the Roman Empire back in the day. The ratio for gold to silver was a set amount, which was 1 to 12 during the Roman Empire. And now it's at about 1 to about 80 right now. So generally that ratio is somewhere in the neighborhood of 40, like 40 ounces of silver equals 1 ounce of gold. And so if you buy a whole bunch of silver now, you're getting your cash into a precious metal, right? If that ratio reduces to its historic level of about 40, you've just gained a whole bunch of gold if you switch that into gold, right? So the best buy, the best option, the best value for money, if you will, is silver right now.
So you're telling me that somewhere there's a power that be that's deliberately holding silver at this low price right now, which is 44 Canadian.
So not so much a specific price, but just in general. So think of it like this. So you know the ETFs on the stock market, like GLD and SLV and stuff like that, right? That is a contract, a continuous contract. And what's happening right now is those contracts, there is a set amount of metal that is in that I can't remember the word for it, but it's basically in that structure. So like there's there's amount of metal that backs the SLV and the GLD, and that metal is being taken out. There's lots of people that have covered this on financial channels. If you want, I can send you some links about it afterwards. But basically what that means is that there is now less metal backing those indexes, and essentially when you see all of those indexes rise and fall and people are buying and selling, it's just paper, it's not actual metal. And
Mhm.
the ratio of the amount of money that's in GLD, as an example, is 400 to 1 of paper to physical ounces, right? So for every ounce that actually exists in that structure, there's like 400 ounces that are just floating out there that don't actually exist. So when things go, sideways and tits up, 399 people are going to be really unhappy that they don't get their gold, and they're not going to be able to sell it because it's going to be essentially worthless. I don't know exactly what's going to happen with that, but I do know that in a game of musical chairs, if you don't have one, you lose.
Yeah, well, that stems back to the currency show that we did back in 2021. We did a 4-part currency show explaining how money works and how gold was used back in the day when the Romans had figured out that people that would bring gold to a vault and got a receipt for it rarely cashed it in. So
Yeah.
they would lend out these receipts based on the gold that was sitting in the vault at 10 to 1.
Yeah.
Scary thought. Is that still happening today in the gold market?
No. Well, no, not in the same way, but that's basically the genesis of fiat finance. So basically, they gave IOUs out essentially, and so they printed money and they used money in the economy that didn't actually exist. And so one of the things that actually started the true decline of the Roman Empire was they printed more money than they really had, and they started shaving down the coins. So the reason that we have those little divots on the outside of coins is because people were doing this. They were shaving down the outside of the coins or cutting off the corners so it would be less than the actual face value, and then they would melt that down and create a new coin, right? And so once people started to do that, and everybody was like, well, you're going to have to give me more because that's not what it's worth. And so, the idea behind, maybe I should overview this. The purpose of a currency is an intermediary between resources, right? So the only reason that I give you $10 and you take $10 is that we both agree that $10 has value that you can go and use somewhere else, right? And historically, this was used as coins. It could really be anything. I just watched something the other day that the Mayans used chocolate, but there's a way to manipulate that and what do you call it? Create, confiscate, not confiscate. What's the word for creating something that's not real? Defraud.
No.
What's the word for that?
It's fraudulent. I mean, it's fiat. Is what they're doing.
Yeah. So essentially, they're printing what they don't have, which is what debt is, right? And so when you get to a point in your economy where you can no longer have the amount that is out there cover the expenses that you have as a society or a civilization, it crashes, and we're getting close to that. And the title of the show is what's going to happen with the Canadian dollar. Well, we're printing so much money that eventually the amount of money that we owe on the debt is not going to be serviceable, and when that happens, the economy and the currency of the given civilization collapses, and that's happened thousands of times throughout history.
Yeah, well, currencies tend to have a lifespan of between 75 and 125 years, and the Canadian dollar has been longer than that, which is sorry,
150. Yeah, we're 150 pretty much.
Wow, man, it's crazy. So we are in for a very big disappointment soon. And we covered in a couple of previous shows there with Rob Anders, a former member of Parliament and someone that had the displeasure of being close to Justin Trudeau for a while, had stated that the Bank Charter of Canada is not going to be renewed next year in June.
Oh, really? I haven't heard that. That's surprising.
Yeah, well, the Bank Charter is only 100 years. It expires next year, June 30th. So July 1, we will have banks without a charter. And that suits Trudeau just fine because it's going to create the amount of chaos that he needs. So I'm thinking between now and then, I'd like to see people move their money out of Canadian fiat currency and into gold, silver. Well, I like Bitcoin. You don't. That's okay. And property. Or move it here to Panama, move it to Costa Rica, move it to other countries that have smooth and safe banking systems.
Yeah, so let me comment on that. So I think it's really important for everybody that watches this to understand something really important. Like I was saying, the purpose of currency is an intermediary between resources, right? So there's three things that you need: skills, assets, and resources. That's the stuff that keeps you alive, regardless of the things that you have. But all of the assets that you have, and the skills, assets, and resources that you have, the assets and resources that you're able to get with the money that you have now is going to be what protects you long term. And so whenever I talk publicly, I always say the same thing: if you guys don't have 90 days worth of food, that's the number one thing you got to go get. You have to have enough food to keep your family alive, because what's happening in the world with war and the decline of the civilization and the economy and all these different things, that's going to be the number one thing that you're going to have to worry about. Nothing else matters in your life if you don't have any food in your belly, right? So that's the number one thing that you got to get with your resources. And as an intermediary and beyond that, the gold and silver, the purpose of gold and silver is to have a physical asset that you physically control. Because what's happening in China and now other places in the world, including Australia, is they're starting to shut down the banks. And so at some point in the future, I don't know when, but at some point, I guarantee this, is that at some point they will limit how much money you can take out of the bank
Right.
in cash. And so gold and silver is one of the ways that you can still very easily and completely legally, and I highly recommend everybody do this to some degree, is you can move your money into gold and silver, so you have the hard asset that you physically control. Because at some point, you're going to need it. I guarantee that too.
For those of you that doubt what our guest is saying could actually happen, did this not just happen in Argentina a few years ago? And what's the other country that went full commie?
Well, Brazil brought
Venezuela.
in Venezuela. Yeah. That happened in Venezuela. It actually happened in Cyprus as well. That's where they did. Do you guys know about bail-ins?
Ooh.
Let's hear it. Let's hear it. Go ahead.
So a bailout is what we're kind of all familiar with. Is think of this circle as the bank, right? So this is the bank, and they screwed up and they suck and they lost everybody's money and whatever. And the government comes in and says, "Hey, you guys suck, so we'll just make you whole again." So they'll take public money and put it inside the bank, make the bank whole. Bank continues operations even though they just lost $1 bajillion, right? That's a bailout. A bail-in is where the bank doesn't take any money from outside. They liquidate all of the assets of the bank on the balance sheet, and your money, all of it, is on the bank's balance sheets as an asset. That includes safety deposit boxes. And so they liquidate that and give you stock in the bank, and then they take all of the assets that you put in there and put it on their balance sheet, and they move it to their accounts essentially, and they bail in the bank so that they stabilize the bank.
And this legislation was passed back in 2017 in Canada.
Yes, so there was two rounds of it actually. I can't remember if the first one was 2017 or 2015, but they did a second round in 2019, I think. But it's in Canada already. It's in the US as well. And yeah, let me just preface this with kind of the end game of this. So Chrystia Freeland, in her Infinite Insanity, wants to raise our debt ceiling to $2.1 trillion. And it's already at $1.8 trillion. That means she wants to print another $500 billion, right? And so if you do the rough math, and we're already spending more money on the debt servicing than what we spend on our military or healthcare, and once that number gets really, really high, it will just become insolvent, right? And generally that threshold is about 130% of GDP. I think we're at like 105% or something like that right now. And the end game is to collapse national and sovereign currencies so that they can roll out central bank digital currencies, right? The ultimate goal is central bank digital currencies, because what that allows them to do is to A, know every single transaction that you do, B, allows them to control whether or not you can make that transaction, and if they don't want you to, you can't, and then C, they can manipulate the currency and force you to use it at their leisure and at their will. So those three things together basically means that you have no freedom of transaction. And because it's a non-physical transaction, right? Because if you have cash, I can basically tell you like, hey, let's do this transaction. You agree and the transaction's done. But if we have to go through a third party, which is essentially a central bank digital currency, we don't have the ultimate authority on whether or not a transaction happens or not. And so it's essentially the ultimate loss of freedom for transactions.
So, Bryce, essentially, I want to maybe clarify that a bit. I'm going to use some
Sure.
simple examples here.
Yep.
I keep telling all of you out there that you need to never cooperate with police or the government. You know, the idea, whenever police knock on your door or whatnot, you know how you stupid idiots out there say, I'm going to cooperate fully. I'm going to bring them in my house because I have nothing to hide. I'm a good person that doesn't break the law. Yeah. As soon as you start thinking like that, you are setting yourself up for failure, because it doesn't matter what you say to Canada Revenue Agency, the police, a judge, a crown attorney, a bylaw officer who has no authority, by the way. Doesn't matter what you say. They're going to twist it and turn it into something criminal. You can't win with these people. So if you are going to have a central bank digital currency, Bryce, and let's say, for example, you're in the midst of a court battle and you're hiding assets, but your car breaks down and you have the car not in your name, but in your son's name, your ex-wife's name, whatever it is. But you take your digital currency, your central bank digital currency, and you pay for car repair. And that goes, boop, flag. He has an asset. Let's find out which car was repaired. So what do? They find out where you spent the money. Oh, Joe's Garage. They call Joe's Garage. Hey, did Kevin J. Johnston give you some money for a car? Why, yes, he did. Oh, well, what did he get done? Now they know the make and the model of the car. They know who owns it, which means they know how often you interact with this particular individual. And now they're going to look into that individual's spending to find out what they own, to see what assets of yours they can possibly screw you out of in whatever court case you happen to be in with the government or the bank or anybody else. Every single thing that a cop finds out about you is going to lead them to question more people and find out in a pathway. So one purchase of a repaired vehicle could lead to 30 people in your life now being under scrutiny because of the central bank digital currency. You need autonomy. If you own a car in another name, you need to be able to go, cash, boom, 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 lay down the cash and leave so that everybody that you know is protected. Saying central bank digital currency is this. It's Adolf Hitler knowing everything you're doing, but worse, because now they're going to put everybody under scrutiny and destroy every interpersonal relationship you have. Because when police begin making phone calls to people, the average person, you're so goddamn stupid that you're going to say, oh, the police called. I'm going to answer all their questions because I have nothing to hide. And they're going to ask you everything. Do you know Kevin J. Johnston? When was the last time you saw him? What did you eat at the restaurant? Which bar did you go to? Why'd you go there? Why did he talk about this? They're going to find something to charge you with. People are in prison all over Canada and the United States for nothing because they spoke to police, and the cops, they think you're a joke. All right, you understand? The cops, they just keep needling you to find something to put you away because they're psychopaths. They're sick in the head. They want to find a way to get you in jail. The more you talk, the quicker they're going to find something to put you there for. And central bank digital currency is your ticket to prison time for nothing. You have everything to hide. All of you do. Shut up and stop talking to the police, the government, and everyone else. What do people do, Bryce? How do we get away from central bank digital currency? Considering now Edmonton City Council is voting next week on what date to start the 15-minute city there. Bryce, go ahead. You're up.
Saw that. Yeah. So kind of how you have to think of this is the long term and the short term, right? So
Right.
the ultimate goal is basically four things. Okay, so that's digital IDs, number one, because that has to connect with central bank digital currencies. Then you need a microchip in your hand, so it's guaranteed forever for life. And then ultimately, you're going to live in 15-minute cities, right? So you have those four things together, and that's basically the pillars of enslavement for all of humanity for all of time. And if those four things are implemented and rolled out for everybody everywhere, humanity is going to be enslaved forever because there'll be no escape. Because what that will allow them to do is that everybody that's born from there on in will be given these four things, and you will never, it'll literally be the Matrix, right? And so what do we do about that, right? The ultimate question. And so the first and foremost is that you have to be yourself, able to protect yourself, and you have assets, skills, and resources that will keep you alive when things go sideways, because war is here. It's not even coming anymore. It's here. And there is economic problems. I could go on and on about problems, right? But you have to have you, yourself, and your family able to defend yourself and take care of yourself. That's number one. Number two is that you have to be in a community of like-minded people, even if it's two people, right? Everybody lives in a physical location that we're supposed to have a representative of that location, but we'll not go there for now. But what you have to do in that that environment of wherever you are, because this is universal. Like, yeah, I mean, you're in Panama now. Nobody is going to escape this. They're not going to be like, oh, they moved out Panama or somewhere. Guess we'll let them go. This is the goal for everybody, right? So everybody is in this war. They're going to try and either get rid of or enslave everybody on this planet. There's nobody that's going to escape this battle, right? Because it's a battle for freedom. And so you have to be building communities with wherever you are physically, because when these people, whoever they are, come to kick down your door, if you have nobody that you can call or work with or whatever, you're alone, right? And being alone in this type of war is a death sentence, essentially, because if you're not able to collaborate and work together and solve problems, nobody is going to be able to survive this as a lone wolf. So you have to get yourself fixed up and prepared for this. You have to get in a community, and then you have to get skills, assets, and resources to make sure that you can do something. And then ultimately, where this is going is, what do we really want? Like, if we are supposed to be free citizens in a democratic country, which supposedly we are, but we're not. If this is the case, what should we be working towards? Where are we going to go together, and how are we going to do that, right? And that ultimately comes down to organization of your community with your skills, assets, and resources to fix a problem, whatever it is. And one of those problems is corruption. One of those is communism. One of those is, all of the other nonsense that's happening. But ultimately, you still have to get organized.
The biggest problem is cowardice.
Yeah.
Canadian cowardice.
And apathy.
Canadians just will not take up arms. They will not defend themselves. They
We're an
won't do it.
extremely
They won't even
polite
put
people.
bars on their windows. They
know.
cry when someone breaks in, but they won't even put bars on their windows. All right, look, hey, your partner in crime, Peter, is here. Peter Merrick, welcome back to the show, brother. So
Hey,
good
How you
to
doing?
see you. Things are great, man. Things are great. All right, you have some commentary to make on this. You're up.
I do. I just have to share with you. I bought a lot of gold back when the world was locked down, and I thought the country was going to fall apart, being Canada, because that's where most of my money was. And I discovered things, and I want Bryce to actually qualify what I'm about to say, but I found this really fascinating. I found out that when you travel with gold eagles, which are valued, Bryce, what's the spot on gold today?
23, 24.
3,216 Canadian.
Oh, Canadian, yeah.
Okay, so I
3216
just want
Canadian.
to, I'm going to go and ask, well, you know who I'd like to ask? The other gentleman who was on, because maybe I've told you already, I'm going to give a quiz. And the quiz is this: you're allowed to travel with up to $10,000 worth of cash. So an eagle is priced at the metal that it's on. It's over $2,300 US. How many are you illegally able to travel with? You're only allowed to bring $10,000 worth of currency.
That would work out to be something like what, 198 you'd be able to travel with?
You could travel, because it's valued at $50, you could travel with 499 silver eagles. Now that's about close to 17 kilos, but you could not be breaking the law. So this is something that people should be walking around with gold eagles. Like, if you're traveling, it's easy to carry about 10, 20 ounces with you, because it's something you can trade. And here's the other thing that I found really interesting, that when you sell them, it's not reported. It's up to you. They're not required to report it. So in
There's no
essence, if
taxes
you
on
need
gold.
to have, there's no taxes. So you're able to travel with it. If I cross the border with several $100, several, 100 coins, which would be equivalent to about 300,000 American, I could set up somewhere. I could survive. And it's recognizable. And guess what? You're not breaking any of the corrupt laws that are placed on us that said that you're only allowed to travel with $10,000. It's like a quarter. It's like a nickel. The metal is much more expensive than the actual currency. And that's the same when you have a gold eagle. Now, one thing I want to share with your listeners, that you don't have to pay tax in the States or in Canada on Canadian
Bullion.
Maple Leafs. Well, Maple Leafs,
but
the U.S.
But
allow-
any bullion in Canada, there's no taxes on.
So I also want to share something else, that nobody, if you buy this currency, and we have a link that will show people if you buy it, one thing I really recommend is you take possession of it. I know that there's vaults out there, but in 1933, the governments of the world went into all the bank vaults and all the places where gold and silver were stored, and they seized it and they gave people paper. So you'll be no better off if things go crazy than you would if you just bought it with your bank and they gave you a certificate saying you have, let's say, 100 ounces. Because when they need it, they're going to seize it. And the question is, do you have possession of it? And I look at it, you want either, I know that you sell bullion, Grace, but for me, my choice happens to be an eagle, American gold eagle or American silver eagle, or a maple leaf, whether it's gold or whether it's silver. Just the fact
Okay. Just
that
so
it's
people don't understand what that means. The gold, the American Eagle is a gold coin with a $50 face value. It's supposed to be a perfect ounce of either gold or silver. And in Canada, we call them maple leaves because they've got the maple leaf on the front. Again, 1 ounce of gold or 1 ounce of silver. Now, there is something, Peter, to reflect on very quickly here, and that is when you're flying in between Latin American countries, they make announcements in the airports. They do it in Spanish, French, English, and a couple of other languages I cannot identify. I think one of them is Arabic, where they remind you not to travel with more than $10,000 of value with you. But to come to Panama, you're not allowed to bring $10,000 or more. So more than $10,000, I mean, of sports equipment. So I don't know what they would consider $10,000 in gold or silver. I actually am going to look into that because I've got some really good contacts here in Panama. I'd like to find out if they consider the gold, the $50 face value, the value of the coin, or the gold value, the value of the coin. It's really
Can I
odd.
share something with you, Kevin?
Yeah.
You're in a country that uses American dollars, and an
Yeah.
eagle is valued at $50 American. So I'm assuming, and again, please find out for us because this is the safest way to travel. I know that you like crypto, but the one thing that I have a problem with crypto is I don't know who even created Bitcoin. They don't know the story, and everybody's on it. And if everything starts falling apart based on the three things that Bryce was sharing with us, that means you need skills, resources, and what's the other thing, Bryce?
Skills,
Assets.
assets, and resources.
Mhm.
Those things. When things break down, we're going to go back, and it's going to be things that you can touch, and that's going to be
Yeah.
food, clothing, bullets, and then currency that people are
Oh,
going
yeah.
to accept.
Okay, hey, I'll say, Bryce, I got a question for you actually out of the TikTok room here. But yeah, Peter, you're right. Food, cigarettes, alcohol, medicine,
I like the cigarettes.
gold, silver,
Ed
bit of
likes the
cash.
cigarettes.
Yeah, and all that. Like Ed loves the cigarettes. He does. He really does. But someone's asking here, should they ever own paper gold or should they own the actual gold? Bryce, you're up.
No, never own paper gold at this point because so like I think I mentioned, maybe I didn't mention this today. Sorry, my cat's just joining me. So the amount of gold that is being bought right now, so it's generally considered true that the U.S. has about 8,000 tons of gold. Okay, so just hold that number in your head for a second. So we suspect and we're estimating that China is getting upwards to somewhere like 5,000 to 6,000 tons of gold. We don't actually know, and they're one of the biggest producers of gold, and they're not exporting any of it. So they could have a massive amount of gold that we don't know about. And the central banks across the world have all been buying gold like it's going out of style, and they purchased about 1,100 tons of gold because I think what they're ultimately trying to do, and this is my personal opinion, that they are going to back the central bank digital currencies with gold when all of the sovereign currencies collapse. And so when you get paper gold, so paper gold is like GLD or other types of paper assets that are like investments. You don't actually own any metal. It's not represented by an actual metal. We only do the physical metal, and so I highly recommend that if you're going to bother getting into precious metals, you do it in one of two ways, which is the physical asset itself or a mine that produces it, because the mine that produces it will still have value. What is that going to mean when everything collapses and like there's no stocking? I don't know, but that kind of depends on how bad you think things are going to get.
Yeah. Okay. So someone just asked here, is 800 ounces of silver enough?
My response to that is there is not an amount that will be too much. So as much as you think is you can afford is probably better than whatever you think. Let me rephrase that. Physical assets number one, precious metals number two, right? So those skills, assets, and resources are always going to be number one before you consider putting money into precious metals. Unless you have an excess amount of money, go and get hard assets first, because remember, the point of precious metals is an intermediary for resources. So if you have the ability to get cash or to use your cash for physical assets, that's going to be beneficial to keeping you alive and safe. Do that first, because that's the highest value that you can get, because that's the ultimate goal. So do that first, and if you have excess and you want to invest or you want to have additional protection for your net worth, that's when you talk about precious metals.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Coming.
Good old king.
We're gonna get her ticket. And then
All right.
See what that says?
It's a beautiful, the gold is beautiful, but the
Oh.
image is making me sick. I'm gonna throw up. Who is that?
Let me actually mention something about gold that I forgot to mention. So I've been saying repeatedly here that silver is the best overall investment because of its undervalue, but there is something to be said for the revaluing of gold. So Ed mentioned that the confiscation that happened after the Depression in 1933. So right after that, the end of 1933 or 1934. They did what was called the revaluation of gold, and so basically, after they did that confiscation and they had all of this gold under their control, they revalued the price of gold from $24.50 to $34.50. So it's basically a 40% lift in the price of gold. And so the BIS, the Bank of International Settlements, that's essentially the central bank of central banks, they are talking about doing that again. And so we don't actually know how much they would reprice it to or what the actual value of gold is. But I've heard estimates anywhere from $5,000 to $50,000 for every ounce of gold. So if that happens, I mean, this is also in relation to how many dollars you're pricing the metal in, but they could price it in central bank digital currencies or pesos or whatever. Like it's an intermediary and a relationship, right? So we don't actually know how or what they're going to reprice it to, but they are talking about doing exactly that. So I still recommend people have some gold if they're going to invest in it for that purpose. But the highest value is silver right now because it's so undervalued.
Yeah. So this 1 ounce silver has got a face value of $5.
Yeah. And I
then-
think the Canadian one's 50 as well. I think.
And the Canadian gold 1 ounce is $50.
Yeah, exactly.
So
That's the
$5
face
coin
value.
and a $50 coin. I got you.
Yeah.
So you can see that the 10-time value
$5,
that gold has.
$50.
Right.
Okay.
And if
Sorry, gentlemen, just want to remind everyone, this coming Monday night at 9 p.m. Eastern time, if you see there on the bottom, donate $25 and I'll send you a link to come into a private call. I will teach you for an hour what you need to know about not paying tax in Canada. I'm talking about income tax, how to protect all your assets, the things I'm doing for my clients right now. All right, get in there Monday, 25 spots. That's all that we have. $25 donation gets you in there. Take notes and ask a lot of questions. So the first hour is me talking. The second hour is me fielding all of the questions that come in. kevinjjohnston.me/donate is where you can get your $25 donation. Just go ahead and pay that. You're in. You'll get the link on Monday afternoon. All right. Peter and Bryce, I need to know this one. The gold and silver market out there, people don't seem to comprehend it. And they also don't know what to buy. So what do you buy? Do you buy bars? Do you buy coins? Or does it matter? Go ahead.
So again, it kind of depends on a couple things. So so I generally recommend people to have a whole bunch of coins on hand that are going to be used for when things go sideways. But an ounce is an ounce, and an ounce is an ounce, right? It's an ounce of silver, right? So there's private mints and there's sovereign mints. So the sovereign mints are basically universally accepted. So some people care about that. A lot of people don't, because there's silver stackers that just stack silver. They don't care what it is as long as it's silver, because it's silver, right? And so from that perspective, no, it doesn't matter. However, like I keep mentioning, a currency's purpose is an intermediary. So if somebody is like, I don't want that, it doesn't say Canada on it for whatever reason, well, then you're going to have to take, a hit on that or a haircut on it or whatever. So I generally recommend people that if you want to just be 100% certain that it's all going to be good no matter what, just get a sovereign coin, because it's basically the same price and you're really not losing anything. So you can save a little bit of money on the private mints, but as long as you feel good about it, it's probably fine, because again, an ounce is an ounce, an ounce is an ounce. So it really depends on what you think is going to happen. I generally recommend people just get the sovereign mints because it's basically the same price.
I've got a different take on that. Usually when precious metals become very high in demand, there's a lot of fraud going on. Right now, there's knockoff silver coins and gold coins coming in from China.
Yeah.
They're
Yeah, I
pretty
wouldn't buy
damn
anything
good.
from China. I would never touch anything from China ever. And I've got a lot of experience with fraud in that arena, and specifically from China. And I just saw a thing about it a couple of weeks ago that it's unbelievable, the type of insanity they have. They have fake food. They have plastic rice for it's insane, man. So I don't buy anything from China. I try to spend my money on anything but China.
Now, how can you test the silver bars or gold bars or coins? Is there a way to
Um,
make sure that they're not fraudulent?
Yes, there's an acid test. I don't know if there's private kits for that. There probably is. I haven't looked into that, to be honest. But generally, the way that they test that is an assay, which essentially they take a sample from the gold bar and then they run it through a machine to test if it's the purity of it. But there's a fee for that. So you would only do that if you're doing a large amount. Like if you wanted to sell 1 ounce of silver, I would never waste the time or the money trying to get that assayed. That's really, if you're going to be putting a bunch of money back into the system, is really the only time that you would do that. And this is kind of my point about the sovereign coins, because you're essentially guaranteed that it's not that it's real and it's 100% silver or gold. That's why I recommend that now. Because personally, I have a bunch of bars that are from private mints because they're slightly cheaper, like I mentioned, so you get a slightly better deal. But yeah, there's really no way to do that if you're putting it back into the system yourself, because they're going to use their process to be like, hey, we've got to do our own test, and then it'll be going back in the system, which there's a fee for. So don't bother doing that unless you're going to make a commitment to put it back in the system, because it's a waste of time otherwise.
So, what's the difference between selling, say, a case of silver, which is 500 coins? What's the difference in what you pay for it and what you'll get for it when you sell it?
So there's fees for. Yeah, it is a good question. So there's essentially fees for the process. It depends on how much you're doing and what you're trying to put in. So I think it's generally a couple percentage points that they charge you for putting it back into the system. So if you go to like Silver Gold Bull or whatever, somebody mentioned in the chat that they reported the sale, and then they sent it to CRA for capital gains. So there is a fee for that, and then you get dinged for that. So if you're going to sell it privately, whatever somebody accepts for the price is what you get, but there's no additional fees for that. And so this is kind of one of the advantages of New World Precious Metals, is that our wholesale program is a vaulted service, but after you put your metal into the system, you can sell it back into the system basically overnight, and you can put the cash anywhere in the world. So if you're in Canada and you put your money into the metal, and the metal is in Canada, if you want to move that metal outside of Canada, you can do that, or you can just sell it and then put the money in another country, in another bank account, rather.
Okay, so I just want to clear that up here. If you're going to Silver Gold Bull, or if you're going to the Canadian Mint directly, they are reporting your silver and your gold purchases to the Canada Revenue Agency. Is that what's happening?
Yeah.
Really?
Well, that's what somebody in the chat said. So yeah. I don't know how they do that, to be honest, because I don't know how they would charge you a capital gains tax if they don't know how much that you bought it for. So like, I don't even know how that's possible, to be honest. But we don't do that, so we don't deal with taxes at all. We give you the metal that you want to buy. It's up to you. It's your responsibility to deal with the taxes if you have any of them. But there's no taxes on metal purchases. So like if you buy $10,000 of metal, there's no GST, there's no PST, there's no taxes on that sale at all in Canada. I'm not sure what it is in the US, to be honest, but I think it's similar, because bullion is money, and there's a whole bunch of states in the US that are pushing for precious metals being legal tender, because that's the way it used to be, and then they went off that standard, obviously. But there's a whole bunch of states that are pushing for that.
Yeah, Louisiana, I think just 2 weeks ago, they declared that they're not going to be charging capital gains tax on purchasing and selling of silver and gold bullion, I believe.
Yeah.
Texas has already done it, or they're doing it.
Yeah, I can't remember the list offhand. I've got a chart somewhere that I don't know where it is, but there's
Well, it appears that the red states in the USA, the Republican states, they know that something's going on with the US dollar. They obviously are not entirely confident that the Democrats won't steal the election again. I think at this particular point, a lot of Republican states are going to join forces and split from the US, which they should. You don't want to be anywhere near Democrat thinking in any way.
Oh,
Let's not cover that, but go ahead.
I was going to mention this actually because you were asking for. While I was watching at the beginning, you were asking for like something to define these people. The way that I talk about the left wing policies is the communist left now, because if you actually look at what their policies are, a lot of them are communistic in nature and authoritarian in nature. And so I basically call the NDP and the LPC combined as the Canadian Communist Party, because that's essentially what they're doing. They've enacted authoritarian policies. They're destroying the economy. They want oversight and control. They're censoring people. They're like, it goes on and on and on. They're trying to criminalize free speech, for God's sakes.
But Canada used to be such a free country.
Used to is the operative word there.
And that's what Chris Sky's been talking about too. He's been yelling it loud and clear. I don't know if people are getting the message.
Yeah, well, I mean, like I look at policy. Like I've been historically a centrist. I've voted for almost all of the parties over my lifetime. But what I look at is policy and what are the results and what are the ideas that you're talking about. And when somebody comes to me and says that, hey, I think you should do what I tell you, and if you don't, I'm going to censor you and steal your vote and do all this insane stuff. Like, well, I don't really agree with that, and you're basically telling me that you're trying to control me. And there's a really good quote that basically goes like this: all tyrannies rule through fraud and force, but once the fraud is exposed, they must rely exclusively on force. That was George Orwell, and that's essentially what we're watching happening in the U.S. And I find it interesting too that we in the West, the collective West, we're known as the golden billion to a lot of the rest of the world, and we're known as that because we had all of these freedoms. We could talk, we could connect, we could do all of these things. Right. And now we're losing what made us this golden billion, because we're basically implementing all of these far left communist or fascistic or authoritarian policies. And it's all being pushed by the left now, not the right. And I think what happened, and this is a direct result, I think personally, of Donald Trump getting elected, is they basically, the powers that be, the oligarchy and all these people that control the world, they basically discarded the far right, which was the very religious kind of business people that were kind of ruling the right since George W. Bush and before, and they basically discarded all of those people. They're like, hey, we're gonna take these far left communists people because they're dumber. Like they don't do math, they don't look at history, they don't do analysis, they don't do math, right? And so they're like, hey, we're gonna support you guys because you're easier to control, as far as I'm concerned. But
Are
now
you
what
saying
They are
five
useful
anymore?
idiots. They're useful idiots. That they don't look. And I didn't mean to cut you off, but I had to make a point here about useful idiots. Mao Zedong, when he decided he wanted to destroy China and bring it into full bore communism, he did the same thing that's being done today. He got
Culture
university students to beat up their parents, beat up their teachers, ruin the infrastructure in their towns, beat up the mayors and city councilors, the whole bit. And after he had won the war, he was a very fluid tactician, so he was very good at war. But he had all these university students fighting the war for him in the towns. But as soon as he won, he didn't want them realizing that they had been had. So he shipped them off to the middle of the country to die working the fields. They had no experience as being farmers, but that's what he did. He did not want them to uprise against him after he had already won with his uprising. And the same thing's happening today, but because nobody reads history, they don't understand it. They just act completely on impulse and emotion. They're very easily controlled. What do you think is going to happen, Antifa, Black Lives Matter, when these parties that be win? You think that you're going to get jobs, or you think they're going to just off you? They're going to get rid of you because you're too stupid to be of any value beyond violence. Go ahead, Ed.
Kevin. Who do you think financed Mao Zedong?
Go ahead.
certain members of Little Hats, and these same Little Hats are, I don't know, could you say that they're the same people that pay for the UN, the same Little Hat people that control all our fiat currencies? Do you want me to name names?
Yeah, name names.
Bankers,
We're
elite.
here. Name names.
This was all paid by the banking cabal, the world banking cabal. The Rothschilds were in on it. All these guys were in on it.
Yeah, I kind of collectively refer to them as the oligarchy because the oligarchy is just a group of powerful people that control everything. And it has to be mentioned, I think, again, that the rise of China was really created by the oligarchy. We exported all of manufacturing and all of we got them into the WTO in 2000 or whatever it was with Bill Clinton. And we really allowed and helped the rise of China, even though they've been a horrific group of people that have just destroyed China and enslaved all of the Chinese people. And the Chinese people are pissed too. Like there is a lot of people that are opposing it now because their economy is basically collapsing. But we're really being pushed into a situation where it's East versus West, and it's not so much that's the public perception, but ultimately what this is the oligarchy versus humanity, right? And from that perspective, and that's my perspective, is that if we're going to fight and win this, we, the people, have to be organized against the people that are screwing us. And I don't have Putin kicking down my door and stealing my money. That's my government that's trying to do that to me, right? So I'm not as what's the word? I'm not as opposed to the East as some people, but specifically, I am very opposed to the Chinese Communist Party because communism itself is where this far left mind cancer comes from, as these people that are racist and they just have all of these insane ideas. And if you package all of them together, they're just communists. They just don't understand what they believe, and they're just useful idiots, like you mentioned, that are pushing these insane ideas.
Yeah, so people might be watching this saying, "Oh, come on, it's not really happening." Well,
It
here's
is.
one
It
for
is
you.
very much really happening.
There's a guy came from China in America. He started up a business doing social media work and social media sites. Raised over $1 billion, and he's been making money for his shareholders. The guy's been sitting in jail for over a year without charges, without a bail hearing. This is happening in the United States right now as we speak. The guy's still behind bars. He's done nothing wrong. He's had rallies, and his shareholders, supporters, they show up, they support the guy. He's done nothing wrong. The American government, $720 million confiscated right now. How come it's not on CBS or NBC or it's that communist news network, CNN? It's happening here.
Doesn't suit the narrative.
Happening everywhere.
There's a narrative out there that white people bad, Christians bad, America bad, capitalism bad. Yet these same people that say they hate capitalism, they get paid cash by the Soros Foundation and other groups to go out there and destroy it. So they're taking money within the same system that they claim that they hate. And that's an end result of bad education systems for the last 50 years and declining intelligence quotients for the last 50 years. And now everyone, and I'm just going to come out and say it, now we have all of these illegal aliens coming in to America, to Canada, into the Western world who have very low intelligence quotients. We're talking like 70, 73. And these low intelligence quotients are breeding with our women because our women in the Western world are really stupid. And they say, we have to show how racially sensitive we are. I'm going to sleep with this guy from some God-known country who has a really low IQ and will beat the crap out of me every day and so on. This is what we're doing. We are destroying ourselves from the inside out. And we are doing it without a fight. We are being taken over without bullets flying. It's crazy. Peter, I see you've got that look on your face. You have something you want to say to that? Go ahead. Oh, hold on, Mike. Wait, well, there you go. Try again.
I want to bring us back to Canada. I want to share with people why I thought it was important that we bring Bryce on to talk about gold, because what's happening in Canada right now is scary. So we all know about the budget that came out. The budget that came out, and they said it was for equity, generational equity. That means taking away from someone who has. On top of that, Stefano has talked about these bear trusts, which basically will make every single person a criminal. And I believe, and it's conjecture, but no one can tell me I'm wrong, is they're going to go and put so many fines on people, and they're going to go and send people after them. We're going to say, you know, we're going to forgive these fines because you're offside. You haven't paid Revenue Canada. You didn't register with the government. You just go on the central digital currency. So the question is, are you going to be able to leave? Now I want to share with you something. I deal with people who leave Canada. Now I had one of my largest clients call me up. He called a firm that's been marketing very heavily in Southern Ontario to all the tax lawyers and tax accountants for legal. And this guy's worth over $2 billion. He's decided he wants to leave. And guess what? They told him they couldn't take him as a client because they're not taking clients for a year because they're so busy. So many people with assets are leaving. And you know what's going to happen? What happened in South Africa? What happened in South Africa is they wouldn't let you take your cash. And this is why it's going to be important, why I was stressing, have those coins. Because right now you can leave and you can leave with your assets. Yes, the government's going to take a huge pound of flesh. Well, if you go to Kevin, maybe you won't pay so much. However, they're going to try. And the question is, are you able to leave? Because the image I want you all to see, and this is very hard for me as a Canadian to say this because I drank the Kool-Aid. I remember Mr. Dressup. I know most of the people our age, Kevin, they don't know who Mr. Dressup was because they were born in Canada. Could you imagine that? Ed, do you remember Mr. Dressup?
People
Yep.
that are coming to Canada don't know what hockey is. They don't even
Casey?
know what our flag looks like. So yeah, I get it.
I know. So let me just share with you that the image that I have comes from the movie Titanic. I don't know why it's so imprinted on my mind, but for those of you who remember that movie, there's a real asshole character who's gonna marry Kate Winslet. And what he does is the ship is going down. He's got a stack of cash like this big, and he offers it to the guy who's letting people on the lifeboats. And he says, "Get in." And then he runs away and he comes back and he offers something much more valuable, this huge diamond stone. And the guy says, "It's worth nothing. I'm not letting you on." You have an opportunity like Kevin to leave. And right now, the smart money is leaving and they're going to places like Costa Rica. More importantly, they're going to a gem because I told you, Kevin, I love Panama. I went there and I've been to Costa Rica. And it is got everything, great beaches. It's got a major metropolitan area and it's got beautiful places where you can like hide out in the middle of the jungle. And it's got people who want to do business. And Kevin, I don't know if you noticed this, but I had a banker that our Frank Kingsley explained something to me. He said every time there was a problem in Latin America, the big money ran to Panama.
Yeah. Oh, banking is the second biggest industry here in Panama. And for those who do want to open up a bank account in Panama, get a hold of me right away because I can do it for you now remotely. KevinJJohnson.me. Hit me up on the contact page. I can remotely get your bank account open. You don't have to actually come to the country yourself. You can get your bank account open up and then arrive at a later time. Bryce, you want me to share your screen? Here you go. What's going on here?
Yeah, so you were mentioning a minute ago about what's happening, and this is kind of really great summation of really what is happening, right? And so what this is basically talking about is the far left, these policies that I'm kind of talking about. This is one of the things that has come out of this ideology and these policies that we have basically unlimited and unsecured borders, unlimited amounts of immigration, unsecured borders that are bringing in huge amounts of people. And so we have this idea of democracy and people vote and stuff. Well, if you have literally millions of people that are not from your country, that have no input and don't care about your country, that are just here to improve themselves. I mean, I don't, and I'm not knocking on all immigrants because I've grown up in Vancouver. There's lots of immigrants here, lots of great people here that are part of Canadian. To me, and a Canadian is a Canadian is a Canadian. But at the end of the day, if you have, let's say, people from China that are Communist Party people that are coming here to destroy the country, sorry, bro, you shouldn't get a vote. And I don't think that the illegal immigrants that Trudeau is trying to make legal citizens should be able to get a vote when you walked in through the country and broke the law the first thing that you did. Like, that's just an absolute absurdity. And so this, I think, is a really good example of what happens when we farm out our civic duties to other people. And one of the reasons that we're in this situation is that because most people have not been a part of the civic duties of being a part of a democracy. Like, freedom is something that has a cost to it, and it costs the blood of patriots. If you don't have vigilance, if you don't hold people accountable, if you don't have justice for people that break those laws, this is the type of nonsense that you get. And we're becoming a banana republic up here because nobody cares about the rule of law anymore. And you have the I can't remember the AG's name, that Arif idiot. I can't stand him. Who's pushing C-63 that will literally criminalize free speech. And when that happens, like, Canada is truly dead. And even though that's going to happen, I'm not going anywhere. This is my country. They're trying to screw me out of my home. I ain't going anywhere, bro. So I'm going to be fighting it out here in my country.
Well, the thing that concerns me the most is the disregard the politicians have for the Canadian Constitution. This is the highest law of the land. And the fact that there's judges ignoring the Constitution, that's a banana republic, and we're almost there.
Yeah, we pretty much are there, and this is what kind of makes me mad, and this is kind of why I started speaking publicly and I got into gold and silver. So one of the reasons, and maybe I should just talk about this for a minute, is that I wanted to help people protect what they have. Everybody that watches this has an option to say yes or no to whatever comes down the pipeline. Everybody will have an option, just like we did in COVID. Are you going to do what they tell you or not? Right. And I think when it comes down to the sanctity of not rule of law, but the sanctity of your country and what you care about and what it means to be a part of a free and open society like Canada used to be, that has to be protected. Right. And regardless of where you go on the planet, like I was mentioning earlier, this is going to follow you everywhere. After they knock down the U.S., the only reason that we are enjoying the freedoms that we are is because the U.S. has the Second Amendment. Right, the First Amendment is to protect is for you to be able to speak publicly and have an open debate with people, and the Second Amendment is for when the First Amendment fails. Right, that's why they created that in that way. And if we lose that, if the U.S. collapses, the rest of the world will follow, because the world that comes after that, central bank digital currency, China in control, and all these insane other policies that they have lined up for us, that is a horrific world that I don't want to live in. So I would much rather the West get its shit together and protect the freedoms that we have before we lose them, rather than try to fight it out at a dystopian nonsense after everything collapses. I personally would much rather have that world than the world that they have lined up for us. So, yeah.
Oh, yeah, and I agree with that fully. And what I can say to you, Canada, please smarten up. Please stop looking at people like myself and Chris Sky and Ed and Peter and Bryce and everyone else you've ever seen on the screen here. Stop calling us conspiracy theorists without actually doing the research for yourself. Bryce, Peter, Ed, everyone, we all know that the city of Edmonton is going to a 15-minute city. We covered it on my show back in 2021. We showed you from Edmonton's official city website that they were going to be doing this. I put a video out back in January on Instagram. It's just me talking to the camera, and half the comments on that video are, profanity. You're full of crap. You're full of this. You're this. Your mom is that. You do this to your mom. All of these insults telling me that I'm wrong. And the city of Edmonton announced today they're going to go ahead with it. And today people are still commenting on that video, which got 500,000 views, I might add. They're still telling me that I'm wrong.
Yeah.
Stop living in fantasy land, man.
Fantasy land, man.
Canada's done. It's a fantasy for you to think that the 1970s still exist today. Yeah. Bryce, what are your thoughts on the 15-minute city in Edmonton? Go ahead.
So I've been talking about this for years, just like you have, and it's not a conspiracy theory when they tell us what they want to do. Like, the people that say this nonsense, they have no idea what's happening because they don't look. They just want to live in this fantasy land. Because I think what it comes down to ultimately is that if you accept that this is even possible, and that moreover than that people are actually and actively doing this, you have to accept that there are actions being taken against you, and that means that you have to do something about it. People hate not only thinking about stuff that they don't like thinking about, but they don't like doing anything, and especially not stuff that will force them to do something they're uncomfortable with. And so I think a lot of this comes from not only cowardice, but just what was I going to say? Not just cowardice, but ignorance, because they just don't know. Yeah, apathy too. So those three things: ignorance, apathy, and what did I just say? Ignorance, apathy, and what did I just say? Ignorance, apathy, and
stupidity.
Well, if it's not reported on the CBC, it can't be true.
Yeah, state-run media always tells us the straight goods, right?
But
but
it's amazing
anyways,
how many people say that and think that.
yeah,
Well,
yeah.
It,
So
it
just
wasn't
let me.
on CBC. It's not real. I mean, like I had family members. I don't
Mhm.
talk to them anymore because obviously they're too stupid for me to waste my time with. But they would say, "Oh, why we didn't see that on the news? It can't be real." I mean, Kevin, you got to be telling us lies about the pandemic. This CBC didn't say anything about it.
Anyway, Abraham
Wow.
Lincoln told me to not trust everything I've seen on the internet. All right.
Oh, did he? When was that?
1776. But let me finish this point. So, like all of these things that are happening right now, you got to remember, right? So, Agenda 2030, Agenda 21, all of these agendas, the oligarchy has met in meetings and said this shit publicly for decades, right? So, frickin' Klaus Schwab wrote a book telling us what he's going to do, and in that book, he literally says we're going to redo the entire economy. Well, the economy that we have now is basically on the Bretton Woods system that was created after the Second World War. Well, if we're going to change that, that means like destroying the U.S. dollar because that's what we currently run on, right? So anybody that says like you guys are conspiracy theories, you have to ask the question: if somebody tells you what they're going to do and then they take the actions to do what they tell you they were going to do, are you so dumb that you're not going to believe them, even if those things are actually happening? I mean, that's not my fault that you don't know what the hell you're talking about and you don't want to look, but that doesn't change the fact that these things are happening, right? So do with that information what you want, but don't talk to me about what I'm telling you about because you don't believe it. That's your problem, bro.
Oh,
Has,
I have to address this question right now. Trish in the TikTok room is asking, buying property then in Edmonton is not a good idea. It would be the worst investment in Canada right now would be to buy a house or a property or a condo. That's the worst in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada, because it will be a 15-minute city. Go to their website. They've already split the city up into sectors and districts. They are calling them districts. When you drive from one district to another, you're going to get a photograph of your license plate and they're going to send you a fine in the mail. What value do you think a house could possibly have in a city where if you go across the road, you get a ticket? Trisha, look, I love Calgary as a city. If you're going to spend money on property, do it in Calgary because at least they haven't talked about 15-minute cities there yet. And if they're going to talk about a 15-minute city at the beginning, it usually takes 3 to 5 years to implement that. So when they start talking about it, you know you've got the 5-year timer. Tick, 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 tick. It's ticking down. Do not buy a house in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. You are wasting your money. You're up.
Has anyone heard of the magazine, The Economist?
Oh yeah.
Yep.
You know who that's run by?
The oligarchy.
Yeah, it's a division of it's separated by 3 layers, but at the top it's the Rothschilds.
Yeah.
And they've been talking about CBDCs 20 years already.
Yeah.
We're talking about a digital currency
Since the
coming
80s,
out
actually.
2019 supposed to come out.
Yeah, a long time ago.
I read the article about 25 years ago. I can't remember exactly when, but I was like fascinated. And the way it was written, it's like, wow, this is gonna be pretty cool, eh?
Yeah, I know. Oh, it'd be so efficient and easy and simple. Just sign up now for your own enslavement. Yeah, exactly. You have to slip it in somehow, right?
Yeah,
But if I could about property, right? So the thing that you do want if you're going to buy property at all is you're going to want property that produces food because ultimately there's this saying in the prepper community that all preppers eventually become farmers because ultimately you have to be able to self-sustain or have some sort of sustainability, and the only way that you can do that ultimately without any outside input is being a farmer. And so this is kind of what I get back to when I talk about those 3 things: skills, assets, and resources. One of those skills is farming, and one of those assets is a farm, right? Because if you are reliant on somebody else bringing your ass food, and every city does, and so this is something I should touch on, I guess, too, is that you have to remember that everybody on the planet, every single person, you in Panama and everybody else included in this, is there is a mathematical formula to your survival, and that's about 2,000 calories a day minimum, right? So if you get, I have like I have a lot of food, right? Because I'm preparing for this. But if you don't have enough food, it doesn't matter what you think, what you do, or what comes to your door. You can't survive, right? And so you have to think, how much food do I need? For how long am I going to be able to need to be off of the system before I can restart regenerating whatever that is? And so that is a mathematical formula that everybody has to figure out. And every single city on the planet is food negative because they don't grow their own food. So you have to look at, when you're picking somewhere to go, where does my food come from? How do I ensure that my family can do it? Because there's going to be lots of places on the planet, and Peter Zion, actually, I don't like him for everything, but on this, he's very, very accurate, is that there's a whole bunch of places on the planet that are going to be destroyed by famine because they don't produce enough food. One of those places is China. And all of the places that are not food self-sufficient, and North America is. That's one of the kind of the great things about North America. If we weren't run by absolute morons, we'd be a superpower because we have all of the food, all of the energy, all of the resources that we need, right? But if you're not in a place that naturally has good arable land, you need fertilizer to do that. And if that fertilizer stops flowing, then the production of your country or wherever you are declines significantly. And Canada's kind of lucky in this respect, in that we produce all of our own fertilizer that we need. Basically, we have all of our own energy, we have all of our own food. We are basically self-sufficient up until globalization got a hold of us, and now the oligarchy's in control. But up until that point, we didn't need anybody for anything.
Right. And the most fertile land in Canada was in southern Ontario, the Niagara region. There's a reason why you could grow wine grapes in Canada in that particular region. And now it's pretty much all houses. We've taken every single bit of arable land in the Toronto area and turned it into garbage homes and an amusement park and shopping malls and the whole bit. They're not leaving anything left of any value in the areas where we should be growing food. Now, here's the other problem. In the province of Ontario, in Quebec, and Manitoba, the Canadian government is buying farms from farmers at double the value of what the farm is actually worth. But the caveat to that is the farmer must slaughter every animal and burn the corpses, and they must torch everything that's being grown on the land, and then let it grow wild as opposed to growing crops. Let it grow trees so that there's no more high production, high yield farmland. It's disgusting what we're doing. And of course, the farmers, they know that if they don't sell, they're going to get their land
regulated
anyway.
out of existence. They're trying to regulate out of existence. That's what's happening all over the world. And they actually collapsed Sri Lanka because of that. So Sri Lanka collapsed last year, the year before, whatever it was, because they did this. The WEF came in there. It's like, you guys are going all natural. They banned the use of fertilizer 100%, and it collapsed the entire country because they couldn't grow enough food. They couldn't export. They couldn't get the fuel they needed, and it was a doom loop that destroyed the country. They tried to do the same thing in the Netherlands. Netherlands farmers got organized, and this is why I keep saying that, got organized, got together, told, you idiots are done and gone, get the hell out of here, and they kicked their ass out. So Netherlands was more or less saved from that for now, but they're trying to do the same thing in Canada, and they're succeeding because we're run by a bunch of morons.
Yeah, so I don't know if anyone's aware of this, but in Europe, Russia is the behemoth of fertilizer production.
One type of fertilizer.
I think it's the most important one, isn't it?
Yeah, so there's ammonia, phosphorus, and I can't remember the third one. So Canada produces all three in very high quantities. So potash is phosphorus, ammonia is for nitrogen, and I can't remember the third one. And Russia is the main exporter for nitrogen for the ammonia.
Yeah. So if you're wondering why the price of food went so high in Europe all of a sudden,
That was a major reason. Yeah.
there you go.
And Ukraine and Russia together account for about 30% of the global production for grains, and neither of those two countries are exporting to the West anymore. So that was another big reason.
That's why your bread is $5 or $10 a loaf as opposed to $2.
Yeah.
Oh, and guys, ladies and gentlemen, check this out. Okay, the Panamanians, where I am right now, they love their baked goods. And this morning, I watched it come right out of the oven. It was a sticky bun, literally 10 inches across and 3 inches thick for 65 cents.
Oh.
Wow. Yo, donuts. When they make donuts here in Panama, they are 3 times the size of donuts.
You're making me hungry, bro.
And they're 25 cents. All right.
So if you want to be a diabetic, go to Panama. It's cheap.
Well, there are some pretty chunky Panamanians here because they do like their bread products, but simple things like like really solid buns here, they're 5 to 10 cents a piece. That's it. Bananas are 2 to 3 cents a piece in many cases. Yeah, I will shop for 3 days for a guy my size for $10. It's unbelievable how much value there is for it.
And beer's
Have you done the
50
$20 challenge with Kingsley yet?
Not yet, no, but we will. Don't you worry. We'll do the 20. I'll do it live. We'll do the $20 grocery challenge. We'll do it live here at some point. Oh, and also McDonald's and Taco Bell. Oh, sorry, Peter. I'm just gonna mute your microphone. You got some talkers in the background. McDonald's and Taco Bell. The quality of meat that they use in the products here is like 50 times better than what you ever get in North America. I don't understand how it is that fast food joints have got good food in them and cheap. So, gentlemen, we're doing everything wrong in North America, it seems, and they're doing
I
everything
know.
right in South America and Latin America.
Can I share something, Kevin? Because this is
Yep.
one thing I think the Canadians have to think, since we're all proud. I'm a proud Canadian, but I'm hurt because such idiots are there. My first year of psychology, I like using this example. The professor gave us multiple choice exams, and he gave us 6 exams, and the worst exam they would throw out. And he said, anybody who gets a 0 gets 100% because it's statistically impossible to get everything wrong. Think about this. Klaus Schwab says you will owe nothing and be happy. In 2017, he says he's captured the Canadian government. Canada has signed on to every global agreement. Everything that's happening has been planned. And if you think it's going to get better, I know Bryce and Ed, you guys are still in Canada. I applaud you. But I have to share with you, I went back for 9 months. I hadn't been there in 3 years. It was like Rick Van Winkle. I didn't recognize it. It was this month, and I'm going to let Kevin go nuts. Last month, in June of 2023, I walked down Yonge Street. I took pictures. I took over 100 pictures of a flag that might as well have been the Nazi flag. And it was everywhere. There was a 60-foot flag hanging through the Eden Center. It's to the point where, at what point are you going to be able to make that choice? And that's why we're talking about gold right now.
The Palestinian or the Hamas flag. That's what I call it. I mean,
No, that
why are
wasn't around. That wasn't around back then, Mr.
Oh, you're
Mr.
talking the pride flag, the hate symbol. Yeah, the symbol of hatred and intolerance, the pride flag. Yeah, that's the one that
It was everywhere. Everywhere I walked, everywhere. It's like and everyone was like, they had it. TD, you had LCBO, you had the Swatch store, you had the Eden Center had flags. I never saw something like this before. It's taken over the entire city. You can't speak out against it. And when that bill comes in, and I want to share this with people because this is a real experience that's happened. I believe that even though they haven't implemented C-63, corporations right now are doing it. I know of 2 people, I'm not going to mention one of them, that they spoke out, and because of them speaking out, speaking their minds as a Canadian, corporations have actually taken action against them and say, I don't want to do business with you, because they're implementing the government policies even before they're passed. And if you don't think that's happening, think back to the truckers and think how they grab bank accounts.
Yeah. And for those who are curious, everyone, a lot of you are asking me if places like Costa Rica, Panama, El Salvador, and Argentina have some type of treaty with the Canadian government and the Canada Revenue Agency and so on. As I have learned being here in Panama, Bryce, maybe you know about this or maybe you don't, but do you have any idea how difficult it is for the Canada Revenue Agency to actually get that kind of information from anywhere else in the world? Even though there is technically a banking deal, a banking treaty with Panama and Canada, Canada is hated so immensely now around the world that these banks are not going to cooperate. The Canada Revenue Agency would have to do the following: if they wanted your money or your gold or your silver here in Panama, they'd have to sue you in Canada, win, get you into a discovery, which you don't have to cooperate with, I might add, and then question you on everything, to which the correct answer is go F yourself to every single thing they ask. And then they would have to realize, oh, well, maybe he lives in Panama. The second biggest industry here is banking. Which bank does he work with? They'd have to sue you in Panama and win to be able to get the Canadian ruling to be ruled against you here, but still figure out which bank you're in. No, your money's safe in Costa Rica. It's safe in Panama. It's safe in Argentina. Get your money out of Canada. Now, Bryce and Peter, let's come full circle on this. We're talking about gold, silver, protecting your money. Gentlemen, tell us what you got. What is this company that you have, and how do people make money with it? Please, you're up.
Do you want to go first, Peter, or do you want me to?
Yes, I want to. The reason why I approached Kevin about this is because I've gone out and I bought gold myself. I know people are like crypto, but I like touching things. When Bryce goes and talks about food, Kevin, you're surrounded by it. Like you can get mangoes for nothing. And I bought a bag of oranges for like $5, 100 oranges in Panama. These are the most important things along with community. But if you have to leave, you want to carry things that you can take. So I recommend to all my clients when they're de-risking that they should at least have 20 coins of gold, because you can pick up and leave. And this is something that a lot of people never thought they were going to leave. And I'm frightened now when I find out that the largest law firm dealing with Canadians who are leaving Canada are so busy right now with Canadians giving up their residency, eventually their citizenship, that they've turned people away for a year. They said they cannot take a client for 1 year. Think about what that means. And you know what's going to happen? What happened in South Africa? They're going to eventually put a restriction on money leaving. If so much money leaves, they're going to do what they did in South Africa. They're going to do what they did in China. In 2015, the Chinese opened up for about 6 months their currency, and $2.5 trillion left in 6 months, and they shut it down. Well, they're going to do that to Canada if all this money starts leaving. So you better start thinking about what happens if that happens, and you have to actually think in the future. And Bryce, you're right. People can choose to see. I was speaking to a gentleman who I told him I don't belong to the left or right because I'm down in the States. He's trying to convince me to be a Democrat. And you know what I found really, I said to him, I don't believe in any of this stuff, but I don't believe in the Democratic Party for sure. And he goes and says, so what do you listen to? What do you pay attention? And I said, he says, Fox. And I said, no, worse. And he said, what? I've read the World Economic Forum papers. I read the UN 2030 and 21. He goes and says, oh, those are just opinions. I'm sorry. It's almost like a Batman episode where Joker has Batman tied up and he's telling him what he's going to do. And you can read these papers yourself, and you don't have to be the smartest person in the world. If no one stops what's happening, this will be implemented. And I'm not saying like Bryce, you've got your gold, you've got your silver, you've got your assets, and you have your community, but you also have your gold and silver, because if you have to pick up, you will easily be able to resettle in a place like Panama, where you would be able to transfer that gold over if someone purchased in Canada. And Kevin, how much does a house cost in Panama?
Oh, a good one built by a Canadian builder right here with, say, 1,900 square feet of space. Oh, $225 US in a gated community.
Wow.
Yeah.
And you could go and travel with that amount of gold if you needed to.
Yep. Well, there's also, if you want to live in the downtown core of Panama City, you can buy condos for between 90,000 and 150 for something small. And the 3-bedroom condos will go for about 275 to 325. The fee, the condo fees in the place that I'm in right now are $98 a month. So, and I talked about the fact that like full-blown meals here cooked in restaurants are $250, $385, $4 for an incredible. I don't buy groceries. I don't cook. I walk 4 blocks and someone cooks for me. It's cheaper.
It's true.
Yeah.
I've seen it.
Ed was here. He'll tell you all about it.
Annoying as hell that he doesn't cook, but yeah, he every day, at least
I'm not
twice.
cooking for you, man. You're just not cute enough. We've talked about this. The answer is no.
All right, put it in the chat. Am I cute enough that Kevin should cook for me or not? Good question to put out.
Don't, no, nobody answer that question. You
Answer it,
know,
guys.
if one person says yes, he'll talk about it for the next 3 years. Don't
Okay.
answer that.
Peter, have you ever crossed the Canadian border with more than say 10 gold ounce coins?
I'm going to be honest, and I'm going to say no. I bought my gold and silver in the United States. I did not really start waking up, Ed, until I couldn't return to my country because I chose not to, and I became vocal. And I realized at that point I was scared that they were going to knock at my door because they were about to throw my kids out of school because I wasn't going to have them participate. And I looked at Panama and I looked at Costa Rica and I said, what can I do? And I bought a lot of this stuff because I was thinking, if I have to leave, I'm going to pick up and leave. And that's why I'm saying I'm not just sharing with everybody that like saying like go and call up Bryce's company. I'm actually following my own advice. And if you're a Canadian and you grew up in Southern Ontario, there used to be Hair Club for Men. And the individual who was the president used to show a picture and he used to say, I'm not only the president, he showed a picture of him being bald. I have a ton of gold coins because
Okay.
what's happening right now is there's a lull. People are getting really comfortable. And guess what? If you're paying attention, what's happening in the Ukraine, which we're all, everyone's focusing on the Middle East, it should be the Ukraine and what's happening with Russia. If you listen to how they're pushing this bird flu, you're going to not have choices. You have your last moments of choice. Can I ask you gentlemen a question? All three of you? If this was the 1930s, what year would it be?
It'd be
Right
1928,
now,
1928 or 29.
I said the 30s, my friend.
No, not yet.
well, okay, then to answer that question, I know where you're going with that. We're talking about the economic crash, the complete stock market crash. in
Oh,
1920.
yeah, I forgot to show this.
No, that's what he's talking about. I'm talking about the 30s. I'm talking fascist Europe.
Okay, hold on.
What year are we?
Hold on. I was going to bump forward and say we would be in about 1937 with a good 6 to 8 years worth of pain and suffering in there where people just didn't know where their next meals were coming from. And that the only thing that the American government could do to boost its economy was to go to war, a war that had nothing to do with America. That's
Yeah,
my
I'd say
guess.
I'd put it
36
closer to 1939 because World War III has actually started.
Yeah, it just
About
hasn't
3+.
directly kinetic yet, but it is coming and it's almost there.
Okay,
And-
Bryce, we got a chart here to look at. What's going on here?
Yeah, so this is I like to show this to people to really put into visual perspective what's happening right now and what's coming, right? So the left here, you have the build up to 1929. And so basically from 1919 here, this is the roaring 20s, is this basically insane ascent to the top. And this is basically the September 2nd, which is the crash, or the peak. So it crashed a whole bunch, then it came up a little bit, and then it fell down. And this took about 3 years to get to the bottom. And so where we are right now, more or less, we're somewhere over here because this is 2023. So this is about a year out of date now. But this is essentially what's happening. And so we had this huge, this is the stock boom and the crash of 2001. This little blip is 2008. And now we're way, 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 way overvalued. So we have a long, long way to fall. And this is kind of what I'm talking about when I talk about the collapse. Because when this bubble pops, it is going to be catastrophic. And the very few things that you have available to you when this does happen is going to be your physical assets, your skills, assets, and resources, and precious metals is going to be what's going to survive. But I'll make this point too, is that for them to really roll out the central bank digital currencies that they want to, you have to get rid of what the existing system is. Because if I'm comfortable in the system that I have and I'm able to function with it, why would I switch to your stupid system that enslaves me, right? They're going to make this so painful and so bad for everybody that you're going to beg for it. What does that look like? Well, this decline is going to be really not fun for most people. I'll tell you that.
Oh, yeah, bad. Okay, for those on TikTok who want to see what we're doing here, you always have to watch the show on freedomreport.ca. That'll take you to my Rumble channel. But you can watch the show right afterwards because we archive every show. I've got over 1,700 videos on Rumble for you to watch. So just type in freedomreport.ca and you can see the repeat of the entire show with our guest faces and all of the slides and visuals. And thank you, Bryce. Thanks for showing us that, because the whole bit about the stock market having crashed in 1929 is that it led to just hundreds of thousands of suicides right around America, Canada, and the Western world, which is unfortunate because Europeans and Canadians and Americans kind of stopped breeding for a short while. And then we had a decade of starvation where gambling, alcohol sales, Al Capone came up in that when Woodrow Wilson changed the American Constitution to ban liquor. What an idiot. So crime was the number one industry in America for quite some time. It wasn't until that we knew that there was going to be a declaration of war. And I guess we could say, thank God Hitler declared war on the United States. The Americans said, oh, well, now we can boost our economy. And even then, they were still short on scrap iron.
Kevin,
Yes.
Hitler never declared war on America. It was
Yes, he
the
did.
American little hats that brought Americans into the World War. Not once.
There was an
twice.
official declaration. There was an official declaration, which was a stupid move on Germany's part, but there we go. Anyway, sorry, Bryce, go ahead.
I'll just make the clarification that war isn't actually good for the economy. War is actually really bad for the economy. But the reason that the American economy did so well during the war is because everybody was paying them in gold for war. So they were supplying Europe and Britain and all of these other places. Were like, hey, we'll come in and support you and we'll pay you resources and support you and do all of these things. But they paid for all of that. That's why it was good for the U.S. And if they didn't do that, and now especially it's the U.S. that is paying out tax money and debt in ungodly amounts. You have to understand that, like, but I say us as in the West. We're adding $1 trillion every few months now to the debt, and that is unsustainable. So at some point, that bubble's going to pop too, and when it does, it's going to be really, really not good. And I don't know what that's going to look like, but what we are being pushed towards is a truly global nuclear war. And there's no doubt in my mind that at some point somebody is going to detonate a nuke somewhere, and all hell is going to break loose. Because let me make this point too, because I think it's an important one. I want everybody to think back to 2020 when the pandemic was getting going. Everybody just miraculously decided that we're not going to have any toilet paper anymore. I don't know why everybody decided this, but especially here in Vancouver, we literally manufacture this stuff and export it all over the place because we have a softwood lumber production, right? But that was a demand side decision that everybody just collectively made one day that we're going to run out. But what happens when that is a actual supply side problem for food? And this is why I keep talking about food, is because at some point everybody is going to notice that, hey, food's really expensive. I better get some in case something bad happens. And when that nuke hits, I guarantee you everybody's going to start doing that. Because when that happens, everybody's going to wake up to the hard reality that we don't have enough for everybody. And somebody's going to lose that. So what I recommend people is that you want to be first, not last. Because if you're last, you lose.
Yeah.
If I could
and
add-
Where do you
also,
live,
everyone-
Bryce? Bryce, where do you live so I can go and visit you?
Calgary.
That's the point I was going to
Yeah.
make. Don't let anyone know that you've got food.
Yeah. Well, I've
It's
already
more
started.
valuable than
Yeah.
anything.
Resist the urge to brag about what you've done. Remember, I keep telling everyone out there, shut up. Don't talk about things. Remember, I'm helping people with their taxes now. When your family members die, shut up. Don't go on social media and tell people so that the CRA doesn't come calling. You don't want anyone knowing. When you buy a new car, shut up. Don't tell anyone. If you buy a new TV, shut up. Don't tell anyone. Enjoy what you've got for you and your family. We no longer live in a world where we are happy to see each other. We're casing everyone else's house to see what they've got. That's what's going on. Don't even let people in your house anymore. You really got to avoid these things. It's really sad. Gentlemen, we're down to our last couple of minutes here. What's the concluding statement? Peter, you're up.
I just think this has been fantastic. And Bryce, thank you so much for sharing this. And all I can say to all of us is I think we're in 1939, 1938, 1937. Well, it was all bad. So the question is, are you going to read the signs and you're going to do something? And some of us are going to stay and fight. And me and Kevin, we're older than you, Bryce, so we wouldn't be good fighting anyway. That's why we're in different
Well, I
countries.
would
Well,
know.
that's kind of
Speak
why
for
I'm pissed,
yourself.
man. It's my generation that's gonna have to do all the fighting, bro, and we're probably gonna lose because my generation.
I mean,
is
I
screwed,
mean,
bro.
I'm being sarcastic. What I'm saying is, I love
I'd enjoy
Canada.
it, but there's no money in Canada. That's why I'm here. And Peter,
Yeah.
like, you and I talked about this. There's no money left, so we left to make money. Now, there you go.
You're right.
Fantastic. Well, Peter, thanks for being here. I really appreciate that. We'll have you on again very soon. That's a promise. All right, Eddie, what's your final word?
Why would anybody go out and buy a TV? All it is lies, lies, and more lies. Like, really? I haven't turned mine on in 5 years.
Yeah,
Well, no,
they're junk.
once I turned it on.
I haven't turned mine in like 15.
That's
All
why
right,
you know
Ed.
what's going on. You have been brainwashed every day.
Yes. Well, the joke is that the reason that the Amish didn't get COVID is because they didn't have TV. That's the truth. Ed, thanks for being here. All right, Bryce, I got to get your closing remarks here on gold, silver, economy. Go ahead. Whatever you want to say, you're up, brother.
Sure. And I forgot to mention too. So the affiliate link that's in the chat there that Kevin posted, that's actually Peter Merrick's link. So Peter Merrick, I'm working with, and thank him, and so thank him and you for giving me this opportunity to talk to your audience. But it's really that's his link, just so everybody knows. And so what I kind of want to end with is the trajectory that we're on. There's this old saying that weak men create hard times create weak men, such and so forth, right? So we're in that cycle of weak men creating hard times. And if you want to survive this, I can't stress enough that you're running out of time. And so if you're at all on the fence about any of this stuff, so I highly recommend that you go and get food for your family, skills, assets, and resources, and prepare for tough times, because that's what's going to be coming down the pipeline. And unless a miracle of people getting their shit together and start noticing that we're really getting screwed, and we get together and start really pushing for serious change, we're going to have some really tough times come down the pipeline really soon. So I highly recommend that people prepare for it, because if you don't, you're going to have a really bad time.
And you're not wrong. And I really appreciate you being here. I'd love to have you back in a future show to talk more about gold, silver, money, and what else people can do to protect what they got.
Yeah, happy to, man. Thank you for the opportunity. Appreciate it.
Bryce Wade, everybody. Thanks for being here. What an amazing guy. He's full of knowledge. And what I want to say to all of you is he's absolutely correct that we are in the cycle now where we have nothing but weak men and crazy women in charge of everything. And we're also in a position where the laws of the Western world state that if you have white skin like this, you're not allowed to even comment about that. Ireland, Scotland, Canada all have hate speech laws, and there are American states right now trying to bring the same thing in. We are not allowed to criticize the junk that we're bringing into our countries, destroying our economies. Believe me, these third world invaders will never contribute anything except for pain, suffering, and misery. We should be allowed to talk about these things. I'm in a country right now where you have total freedom of speech. Panama, you say what you want here. It's absolutely remarkable. And that is why Panama is flourishing compared to Canada, United States, anything on the British Isles, and so on. Without freedom of speech, freedom of expression, and freedom of thought, no one thinks, no one speaks, and no one does a damn thing. And that is precisely what is happening in the West, and precisely why the West is falling fast. You don't have to fall with it. Do what Bryce said. Arm up. I'm telling you, arm up, get bullets, get knives, learn how to use them, get body armor, build shields for your arm, cage your houses in, get bars on the windows, and have at least 6 months of food in your house, because canned goods don't expire in 3 months. They expire in 10 years. Whatever you buy in a can or a package will be there 10 years from now, completely edible. So stock up and protect the ones you love. Get it done now before it's too late. My name is Kevin J. Johnston. This is the Kevin J. Johnston Show that runs every Tuesday and Thursday at 9 p.m. Eastern Time. Don't forget, this Monday, I've got just 25 spots. In fact, there's only about 12 left. For $25, go to my website, get yourself a 1 hour time frame with me. I'm going to tell you how to never pay tax in Canada again legally. Get over to my website, kevinjjohnson.me right now and buy yourself that 1 hour because you're going to be blown away by what I tell you. I will see you all next week. I love you all and good night.